For today's video, we're going to be looking at a Noctowl build of Palkia VSTAR with Terapagos as the sort of secondary attacker in the deck. This is an archetype I've been playing since the start of this expansion, and this is still a list that I'm pretty confident in, to be honest with you. I do still really think there's a lot of reason to like an archetype like this compared to a Terapagos Dusknoir, even though you don't have quite as many tricks up your sleeve with the Briar and the prize mapping situation. You still can carve out multiple two-prize attacking turns, thanks to the Star Portal combination of Subspace Swell as high damage output with Palkia, now thanks to the Area 0 Underdepths, opening up your bench size, so this threat just can once again be a one-hit KO machine, but also the Radiant Greninja with that Moonlight Shuriken, so powerful right now. I am still playing Cancelling Clone. There's going to be this debate whether or not decks are going to be playing Manaphy or not. One of the reasons to not play Manaphy is that this archetype can so easily tutor out Cancelling Clone, but also because a lot of the other spread decks in formats can use Dusknoir to just simply pop a Manaphy and deal with it that way. But I do still think the Cancelling Clone's helpful. There's also going to be control in the format, and it's a pseudo answer there. I think with Iron Leaves, 2 Boss, Prime, Switch, and Cancelling Clone, you have a good amount of ways to beat the controlling matchups, actually, especially because Fan Rotom and Greninja can be easy answers to Mimikyu. Then you have Terapagos that can get around Cornerstone Mask, and you have the high damage output generically from Palkia, which is really cool. So yeah, I think this is actually pretty okay into the controlling matchups, which is another benefit of the archetype. The main reason I think Palkia is playable in the format compared to a Terapagos Dusknoir, which I think is probably overall the superior deck in that it's just lower to the ground and less moving pieces to get going. I think the upside of Palkia is that you really have a better Charizard matchup, with obviously the type coverage of the Iron Leaves for one-hit KOs into their multi-prizes, but that Greninja being a little bit safer, I think, than the Dusknoir shenanigans where the opponent sometimes gets that triple Charmander. You need to really pop off with multiple Dusknoir to be able to win as the Terapagos side of things, whereas the Palkia can take the 2-prize map with Greninja and just be content with that 2-prize swing and force them to crack back nicely with Charizard. And even if they do, then you have Iron Leaves that can come in, and Palkia can very capably deal with Pidgeots. They still have to go wide on their board very often. So Palkia has so many ways to take those last 2 prizes, be it on Rotom, their own Fez, or Pidgeot in the mid-game. If a Palkia is dealing with Pidgeot on like turn 3, that's just so insane for you, especially after you've done a Greninja Snipe play. So yeah, I think you can fly ahead with this archetype into Charizard, unlike Terapagos, which I think going second into Zard is actually not that favourable. So that's the main selling point of Palkia. In the list, I do have a 1/1 Bibarel and that Fezandipiti EX still in the deck list. Obviously, you can Fan Rotom for the Bidoof piece, and we are playing 3 Irida 4 Ultra Ball, so we can tutor out that Ultra Ball, make sure we have incisors online, so that we can have ways to just continue drawing through the deck, because you do really love having early concealed cards, but we're not on that crazy high of an energy count, especially because you want to throw so many of them in the discard pile early, and oftentimes you do funky hand math with this deck, where you'll Dual Seeker to get like Vessel Ultra Ball. Vessel will it'll minus a card to +1 a card to then Ultra Ball away 2 cards that then could be handy for you to get like your next Noctowl or Bibarel or Greninja, which draws more cards, or this, that, and the other. So you do go up and down in hands very often, and Vessel is the card that unlocks that because you're doing it with energy all the time, which is really important. My supporter line is very basic. I'm just playing 3 Irida, 2 Boss, 2 Iono. I think Irida is still one of the strongest things that you'll Dual Seeker for, because it's getting your early pieces of Palkia and Greninja, and crucially, it's really good on turn 2 of the game. Sorry, on turn 1 going second as well, because it can get you Greninja Poffin, and that is going to be really important for the Fan Rotom, of course, but also Greninja stashing those energy is really integral when you are trying to represent single prize boards into multi-prize matchups, because you need to have trumpets, and in order to trumpet, you need to, again, have more combo pieces, but also you need to stash energy in your discard pile so that you can get energy onto, ideally, multiple Terapagos, and then come in swinging with that card. So yeah, I do still really like Irida as just like an opening supporter, and on turn 2, I'm very often dual seeking for Irida because it's going to be a +1 bench Pokemon at least from a Palkia or a Greninja, whilst also still doing the same dual seeker by spending a supporter to get the item that I would have got anyway. So it's not like the strongest supporter, but it's a refund on dual seeker whilst getting a basic. And oftentimes you need more basics for the Terapagos to deal the most damage it needs to, or for Palkia to get in, or for Greninja to do its amazing Moonlight Shuriken. So it still fits the deck really nicely. What I do think is you can get more experimental with a supporter count. I think Crispin's really interesting as an energy acceleration option, so you can get greedy with your star portals, or you have opportunities to use multiple shurikens. I also think Thornton is interesting, another way that you can fix your board state to be a 1-prize board, and then you can turn into a Palkia V-Star out of nowhere, which is similar to Terapagos going for a Trumpet play, but very often Terapagos' damage output is so low that you have to Trumpet plus Prime Catcher, which is really expensive. Whereas if you Thornton, there are situations where you can go wide enough on the board that you can Thornton and Subspace Swell through their active. And when that happens, it's absolutely insane value because the opponent especially won't really expect that sort of play. The only thing about Thornton is, once again, it's a lot of setup. You need to get a Palkia into the hand, then Ultra Ball it away or Vessel it away to then Thornton, and then you still need a lot of bench Pokemon. So that's still going to be like 2 or 3 Dual Seeks, and it's still not the easiest thing to pull off. And then the other supporter I would definitely consider is the Briar supporter. We don't have ways to force our opponent down to 2 prize cards, but that's still how most decks are going to try and beat this archetype, of course. Staying on even prizes, being an attack away with just a 2 prize swing. So having Briar naturally in the deck just gives Terapagos more options to go Prime or Countercatcher for the final 3 with the Unified Beatdown. And I do think that's also something I definitely want to experiment with. Whether Space comes in the deck list, I think the 3rd Vessel is a luxury card. I also think the 3rd Irida is somewhat of a luxury card. And you can also consider the Bibarel just generally being luxury and just going up to the 4/4 Noctowl. I think that's also pretty reasonable. But I really like the 3 Fan Rotom. The idea of the list is to have, it's in this case 8 basic single prize Pokemon. So in many situations you can beat all single prize, and then you have 6 2-prize Pokemon, which gives you like a 75% chance of just leading 1 prizes, which is really important. And with the 4 Nest, 4 Ultra, 2 Poffin, 3 Fan Rotom, you have so much access to that fan call, which is really important. But by having physically high counts of the Rotoms themselves, you start them, so you can attack with them in some instances. And also, they're the best thing to get KO'd. You would much prefer a Fan Rotom to get knocked out than Bidoof, Hoothoot, or Greninja, because they all do so much for you in other situations. So the really, really inflated Fan Rotom count does make a lot of sense for how we're trying to prize map with this archetype and why I really like it a lot. I have gone into hyper detail about this list, really. Hopefully you can tell I'm clearly passionate about. I think it's a really strong one, and I'm probably going to continue to play this archetype or some iterations of this deck throughout this format, to be honest with you, until we get the next set. So let me know your thoughts on Palkia. Is it just far inferior to Dusknoir, or do you think it can be a contender in its own right? Is this list better or worse than the Dusknoir package? I'll hear your thoughts down below, but for now, let's get into some games. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code, OmniPoke. So here we are, getting into our first game. We have a Fan Rotom start with Noctowl, Hoot in hand, and Ultra Ball. Pretty much everything we can ask for. Gives us access to a Terra on turn 2, and it means we can have a 1 prize board, and that's perfect because we are up against Raging Bolts, so we're definitely going to want that. Looks like we have prized Bibarel, so we're just going to go double Hoots here and make sure that we have Glass Trumpet access, because that's going to be really, really important to us, so that we can have this 1 prize board state and then on turn 2 of the game still craft a KO with a Terapagos. I am going to attach active. I think it's not bad for me to bank an energy in the discard pile for Trumpet, but also if our opponent does use a gusting card just to get rid of a Hoothoot, which is completely reasonable, I can keep a retreat option around. They are going to Squawk, then they're going to Pokestop, and they did hit Pokegear, so they should have access to a Sada here. Let's see. Just a Briar from the 7. So maybe they whiffed an attack? Oh, they did whiff an attack, which is really, really insanely good for us. And they're playing Darkrai V-Star in the deck for some reason. We do top deck Nest Ball, which unlocks the hand even more, because I just have more cards to play with now to take that early KO. But because they didn't actually take a prize, it's a little bit more difficult for us to actually take the KO this turn, because normally we bank on having like Fez draw plus Greninja draw plus all the Noctowl shenanigans. So it's going to be a little bit more convoluted for us to get what we want here. But I am going to still Vessel and get drawing with Greninja here first. That's a second basic Pokemon. You can see I'm counting the bench here. We're at 18, 21 with Ultra Ball for another basic Pokemon. And the debate here is whether I Pokestop or not here. And I do end up using Pokestop, and we do hit Hisuian, which gets me a Palkia, which actually does solve a lot of these issues now. So I should be able to KO a Fezandipiti here with a gusting play, or I can just retreat and get an extra bench Pokemon and save Gust. Actually, that's probably the best thing to do. Just get down an extra Pokemon, and this time it's going to be Bidoof, because we're going to be taking 2 prizes and hope to hit Bibarel off those prizes. I can set up double Terapagos, and we can take the first 2 prize KOs. So it is possible to do it. We had a little bit of help from the Pokestop from our opponents, but think of those 3 cards that could have been from Fez if they had launched an attack, essentially. And yeah, we get swinging in the game early, and we have Terapagos ready to rumble. We have Palkia in the back as well, and we're holding on to Ultra Balls, so we're pretty content with everything here, to be honest with you. It's rare, I mean, they basically can't Iono this turn, so we're basically set from here on out, really. If I can Ultra Ball into Fez next turn and Ultra Ball into Noctowl, I just have so many plays available. They're going to Vessel. They're going to get next Ogerpon going. They can finally Sada, so they probably are going to be cracking back with a Bellowing Thunder here. But honestly, the game feels pretty secure when we're 2 prizes up. They don't have many defensive plays available to them. It's only really like Catcher Palkia plus Bravery Charm that would cause us any sort of headache here, really. We can just throw away our excess Noctowl. They are going to Pokestop, even gets rid of the Iono now, but they will Pal Pad and put Iono back into the deck. There is a Prime Catcher, and they are going to deal with a Palkia, which at least forces us to re-establish lots of benched basic Pokemon for a Terapagos KO. But with Ultra Ball in hand, it shouldn't be too tricky, to be honest with you. We do have 1 Area 0 prized. Right, top decking Noctowl just makes it pretty unfair here. I can Rod first just to get some extra basics into the mix. I'm quick kicking the Ultra Ball for Fez here, probably. Yeah, I'm going to Fez for our 3 cards before I do anything else. Maybe Rod the basics back in is reasonable here. I want to draw into more Hoots. So that's completely fine. And we'll... You can see I'm just doing some math here, whether or not it's worth me Noctowling. Because I've prized Area 0, I'm going to Jewel Seeker first here. And we're just going to take 0 plus Irida. Irida gets me Palkia as well as Poffin. And that means we can get our Hoots back out before drawing with Fez. So we've re-established a 240. And also got the backup Palkia on board. Our only headache now would be if they do a very similar play to last turn, like Catcher Heads Palkia, KO whilst bouncing Stadium, and I don't take Stadium off prizes. That's the only thing that would be an issue here. And we don't take Stadium, so there is possibly a line for them to win. It would be Gust Palk with a Coin Flip Catcher, or a Boss's Orders, I suppose, and remove Stadium. But they're also not to know that that line's available because they've only seen 2 Area Zeros from us. The Darkrai V-Star, I'm not too sure on it, but I suppose they're not playing a V-Star power, so... because Bibarel's been prized, we haven't been able to establish the draw engine in the back, but we still have Fez, of course, to see us over the line here, and we did shuffle back in 1 of the Noctowls. No Stadium Bounce, so it's just the Bellowing Thunder. And we just need to draw into V-Star here. Can still go Greninja because we have so many water in the discard pile, there's no reason to not. We can Nest Ball Thin a basic Pokemon out the deck. And we're just digging towards any of our supporters, really. Noctowl, Ultra Ball, so many things get us there. Yeah, I don't even need to go Noctowl, I can just Ultra Ball for the Palkia itself here, pay Retreat and swing. Just make sure we have enough energy for the Subspace Swell, but we're all good. So a huge number of outs. Typically the idea is to have Bibarel in play so that we can give ourselves just so many draws to win. Obviously, because it was prized in this case, we couldn't do that, but yeah, still had the Fez draw. And yeah, nice win against the Raging Bolts. Let's get into another game. Going first is always the priority with this deck when you have the chance. And again, we can lead out with single prizes just in case we're up against an aggressive archetype. But if we see that they're an evolving deck, for example, we're just going to slam Palkia early and try and threaten Greninja plays. The hand is absolutely cracked. We can Poffin. And I'm going to go Terapagos Palkia, seeing a Bouffalant, thinking it's a fellow Terapagos archetype. because they can't really pressurize us too much outside of a Fan Rotom. So we're going to throw down the big boys and protect ourselves from hand disruption. And we'll see how they want to play here. They have Fan Rotom of their own, as well as Hoot and Terapagos. They're going to grab Pidgey and Hoot and Noctowl and pass things over to us. So the best turn possible here is for us to sculpt a KO with Radiant Greninja. Pretty sure if we just deny their Noctowls, their combo deck is pretty poor. So we're going to throw away a Aroma to get a Vessel. And we're just piecing out how we want to do this with Noctowl. I definitely want to get Stadium right so that I can Nest Ball for Greninja. I guess I'm just pre-Noctowling here. I probably should get the Stadium with the first one, right? Because I want to draw more with Greninja. But I suppose I have it guaranteed anyway. So the draws from Greninja don't matter if I just take the switch piece straight away. I'm going to Vessel away one. But I don't have a guarantee of getting rid of 3 waters here. And we didn't hit that, so maybe it was best for me to go about a different way, perhaps. But we are still going to swing with the Greninja. Now, the only thing that's awkward here is that it basically locks me into a Terapagos attack next turn if they have a decent turn. Because I didn't float a 4th energy that would go onto Palkia, right? So if they can make a second Bouffalante here whilst attacking with Terapagos, I'd be in a bit of trouble. It's actually insane that they were able to steal Candy Pidgeot, what's likely a 1-0-1 line, from this position with no Noctowls, but they were able to get there. I'm going to go into the Greninja just so I have a pivot for my Trumpet. And the good news is the opponent didn't get second Boof down, so I'm going to be able to still attack this Terapagos and take another 2 prizes here. In basically a pretty suboptimal situation. Can also get 3 cards from Fez. I can keep cycling here with Greninja. It does just show how important the vessels are to get 4 energy, like, accessible, so you can discard enough for the full value swell. Because ideally you get the full value Star Portal then attached to Palkia if you're swinging with Greninja. Because now we're basically going to try and go like Terapagos for the rest of the game, basically. Maybe if this Terapagos isn't KO'd, that's when I have the license to float an attachment onto Palk. Let's see, though. We go down to 2 left. The opponent was able to respond with a prize, but their board is pretty woeful. We know that they basically just have Noctowls in hand, right? Right. Let's see. They can quick search, but I don't know what's that amazing for them. Okay, well they can Iono and swing into us. That's something, I suppose. Now, I did get rid of my last Vessel, which is a bit awkward with this Irida now. That I can't just get an attachment on Palkia. That would have been ideal. So I suppose we're just going to swing into this... swing into Pidgeot with Terapagos and use the Trumpet again onto the other Terapagos. I guess that's the best thing I can do here. And just say that I'm holding on to Boss and have Fez on board. So I should be able to close on this Pidgeot. They have managed to get Hoothoot down, but they obviously Iono'd their Noctowl that's been in hand from turn 1 to the bottom. So no guarantee that they can use a Noctowl here, even with quick search. Okay, so they do have Terapagos Noctowl, so they should be able to sculpt something decent here. What's their best turn, honestly? Underdepths Counter Catcher. Interesting. They're going to bring up the Fez and just hope that I have a low hand size, I suppose. Here's the research. Interesting, they're playing the Lost Headbutt Bouffalante. And a Giovanni's Charisma in the deck, so maybe they have some techs for some certain matchups. They whiff on DTE, so they just retreat into Fan Rotom. We do hit the Prime Catcher off the top, which is obviously a high roll here, but even if they miss from there, or like I just have to pass that turn, I could just bench Bidoof and Palk, and I'm still closing in on win. We just have such a nice prize buffer there that I think we're always pretty well set. Let's have another game, and again we start the Fan Rotom. This deck is so strong on a high Fan Rotom count. We don't have much else going on though, to be fair. Might need the help of this mulligan. Second Fan Rotom is not too helpful. Our opponent's going to get to go first here, and they do have the Dreepy starts, and they can Nest Ball for Rotom, Ultra Ball for second Dreepy. They lost a lot of cards in their hand, but they got rid of a supporter card, so they're probably holding on to another Iono or something of the sort, maybe an Arven. I can actually just Stadium Attach, so Fan Rotom can initiate the prize race here with its Assault Landing attack. And then the debate is, do I Fan Call now, pre-Iono, or do I just hope that Iono gets me towards my like Ultra Balls, Iridas, that sort of thing for next turn to still have access to these Owls? I think I probably want to play this Iono, even though it's giving them +1 card, because I really want to find Palkia V. I think that's the most important card to find, so I can threaten Greninja, and just more powerful attacks from turn 2 onwards, really. And let's take the one prize. Always nice to limit them from Dracloak draw, because they probably have to candy up this one, right? They get Poffin Forest, so maybe no attack this turn? If they can't attack, that would be amazing for us. Oh no, still Candy Pulse. So their hand was really good after the Iono, to be honest. To still be able to Poffin out more stuff here, really, really powerful. But they're having to Phantom Dive for a 1-prizer, which is really good for us. That hurts a lot of their math. Dragapult is most dangerous when it's always piling up the 200s onto the multi-prizers. So now we have a choice of where we want to go. Do we want to go Palk and try and punch this Dragapult? We can't KO it because they only have 4 bench. We need them to have 5 bench for us to manage 320. So it might be that I'm looking to Prime Catcher here, which is why I'm hesitating on which Pokemon to promote. By me promoting Hoothoot, it means I'm pretty much guaranteeing that I'm going to try and Prime this turn. We're going to start with a Bibarel draw for 5. I can try and Terapagos attack here, actually. Always attaching to Terapagos because I can always Star Portal to the Palk anyway. Then we can weave in Irida Poffin, so I have enough basic Pokemon. Possibly Irida Heavy here, so I can get another Terapagos. If I'm attacking with one Terapagos, I want the other one out the prizes. Oh no, so the other one was there. Okay, we're just flipping the script for more cards here. We did naturally draw into Trumpet, which is pretty nice. We were 18, 21 with Nest Ball, so I can... Well, Fan Rotom also does it. So Noctowl's going to get us Prime Catcher, certainly. And just Vessel for more draw with Greninja. And more energy stashed for Star Portal. Now we're going to play the Nest Ball so we can get multiple Terapagos powered up. And we're going to take 2 onto the Rotom. It keeps Star Portal open for Greninja plays on future turns. And it should also really heavily limit their Dusknoir and Dusclops usage, right? We do see a Dusclops and a Dracloak. Arven for Nest Ball for Fez. No for Alakazam. Okay. Right, they're going to blast into a Terapagos. That does put me down to 2 prizes. So they have to take out Greninja or Palkia here. Do they have Counter Catcher? No. So we actually just win on board here from Star Portal. Yeah, maybe just an oversight from the opponent. That is one of the things with this archetype, that there is a lot going on with the deck. You can attack in so many different avenues. And in this case, we hadn't flipped our VSTAR power, so I can just take out the final 2. Obviously, they were also kind of on fumes, just from the early aggression. But we didn't get a turn 2 Greninja. That's when they're really on the back foot the most of the time. Your ideal route is 2-2-2ing via early KOs on basics. But let's get a final game in. We see a Froakie, which means it's probably a Palkia Dusclops, like, half mirror match, I suppose. But our hand is really, really freaking good. Nest Ball is just, like, one of the most important cards you can ever see in this deck, honestly. So that you can get multiple basics developed. I Greninja before Nest Ball, and I do hit Terapagos, which is even more gorgeous. So I can commit everything to the board here. And I'm even going to throw an Energy Active, so I can pay Retreat if need be. And this hand is just absolutely stunning, right? An amazing opener. I'm threatening Greninja, I'm threatening Palkia, so he's forced to put down multiple Palkia, as you can see. I'm just threatening so much draw power as well. There's a Duskull from them. They're going to Squawk for a fresh 6. To be fair, they've had a pretty good start. I'm going to see Trekking Shoe. Switch into Duskull to try and protect Froakie, but that makes no difference because I have Greninja possibly. And you'll notice this list is one where I was playing one split of my Terras. So ignore the Wellspring Ogerpon. It's definitely better as a Terapagos. And I just forgot to make the change with the list. I was testing with Wellspring for a small period of time just because it's Irida searchable. So you can have some weird hands where like you unlock your item card from an Irida, whereas if you just play the Turtles, your Irida to find a Terra always has to be Nest Ball. But I figured just attacking with Turtles is just the most important thing, so we have eventually changed back. Right, we're able to get our Noctowl for Irida Vessel here, and I'm just, as you can see, doing some hand math to figure out how I get towards this Greninja play. I'm also trying to weave in more basics possibly here. Okay, I get rid of Countercatcher as fodder. You can see that's where the hand math was coming in. We're then going to Greninja for some more cards. And we have 3 water to spend on the Greninja. And I can float an attachment onto Palkia. And most importantly, I didn't put Area 0 down. So there, Palkia can't carry my VSTAR because I'm going to be taking out Duskull and Froakie here. The only thing to bear in mind is that they could Greninja me back and deal with Hoothoot Fan Rotom. So I was debating whether or not to play the other Ultra Ball just for Noctowl, just for like cards for on a future turn, or just to waste the Noctowl. But ultimately I decided I don't hate them taking 2 with the Greninja and spending Star Portal, because then I could actually chase their only Palkia with 1 energy attachment, and then they're really like ruined. I actually kind of want them to Shuriken here, because it's so expensive on their energy attachments that I could go Palkia KO their Palkia with 1 energy attachment, and then they're literally just locked into exactly Blood Moon. So I ultimately decided let's give them the Hoothoot to play around with. They actually do Hisuian to get the Blood Moon, and then Iono things to the bottom. To be fair, it's quite a dangerous hand for me. They're getting rid of our only Engine Mon, and I actually have nothing in the hand right now. But there is the Pokestop for us, which could help out. Top deck is Trumpet, which isn't all that helpful. I can Poffin out Fan and Hoot, and then we're going to Stop. Stop does hit Nest Ball, which can give me Fez. Really all we need is water here, right? We have the Prime, and we do hit water from the Fez, which is nice. We're just doing some math with Subspace Swell here, but 6 is enough, so I can do the play that I really wanted to do, which was deal with their only Palkia. And we're still going to Trumpet here. And we go down to 2. Their best play is like blow up with Dusclops and Blood Moon are active, and Iono to 1. That would be pretty decent, but I do have Fez still on board, and Greninja potential draws. I'm not sure what else they can actually do here, to be honest. Yeah, they do Dusclops and Ursaluna. It's basically the only play they have to KO our active. And they have to KO our Palkia, right? Our damage output's just too insane. Can they also weave an Iono in here? That's the big question. Yes, they can. Nice. One of the best things about the Palkia list is that it does play like 4 Ionos. We've drawn nothing for now, but we will have +3 draws from Fez and our top deck. So still a good amount of ways to win. Obviously our Noctowl is still live. Irida isn't game because we've spent our Prime Catcher, but Fez does give us Boss, which means I can win on the spot actually with Fan Rotom to take the final prize. So a little bit shaky there. In not many of the games were we able to develop Bibarel. When Bibarel set up, it was just by virtue of the matches as well. I pressed prize pieces in every game I think I showed today. When Bibarel's online, you feel a lot more comfortable about the aggression of this archetype because you spend so many owls early that your mid-game is much more conservative compared to that turn 2 spike. That's what always seems to be the case. There are some things I've considered. If you play a 4/4 Noctowl, you have more of those spikes in the mid-game. Same as like a Night Stretcher can give you more immediate access to more owls after you've lost your first stadium. And also a Judge is a supporter that I'm considering, and Luminion actually, so that when you go second into other Palkias and into Terapagos decks, you can judge away their early Fan Rotom, and then you can Fan Rotom after the Judge in the ideal situation. But you probably have to play Fished in order to make that happen. Because there's no guarantees unless you play a really high Judge count and completely like warp the deck. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the archetype. Definitely a strong one. Really still enjoy this archetype. There's still a lot of angles to it. Even with my like straightforward list, I would say you can get a lot kookier with like Energy Switch and Crispin and Thornton and these sorts of supporters. Definitely gives you options, but it's just not at its core as consistent with the like supporter and ball search counts that we want to play. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on the archetype down below, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.